This week, we're taking you on a journey to a whole new level of web creation and moving beyond a standard website and onto creating a WordPress multi-site. Creating and managing our first multi-site is one of those great milestones along the career path of web creators. It's a rite of passage that takes us on our very first steps into the big leagues, and as such, many professional and experienced web creators find the whole idea of multi-sites a bit too intimidating, and that is why this week we're showing you a simple, efficient way of achieving this goal. Now, if you're a Monday Masterclass follower, then you know that we always leave lots of links in the show notes below to related videos, in-depth articles, software, and websites that we mention and recommend. If this is your first Monday Masterclass, welcome! And be sure to click on the subscribe button and tap that bell so that you don't miss out on more videos that we produce especially for web creators on related subjects that could help you with what you're hoping to create online. And as always, if you have any questions, thoughts, or ideas, please write them in the comments below. Now, let's see how we can convert a standard website into a WordPress multi-site. Basically, in creating a multi-site, we keep our main domain or root site, but enable other fully fledged sites to branch from it and perform independently. Now, typically, this speeds up our site's performance on the whole, but more to the point, it allows us to compartmentalize the content, media, and the site activity, and this also helps us to make our site management process more efficient. Now, to redefine or reclassify a website to a multi-site, we'll first need an established WordPress website. And it can be any kind of site. It could be a site that's been online for over a decade or perhaps just a few months. But if you're setting up a brand new site, then this isn't for you, I'm afraid. During your installation process of WordPress, whether you're using a dedicated hosting service or installing it manually, you will be asked if your site is going to be a standard or multi-site. Today, you see, we're focusing on changing existing sites. Now, as we'll be redefining our website in the backend, we'll need an FTP or SFTP software. This is software designed to manage, edit, and transfer files to and from our server. We'll be using Visual Studio Code, but you can also use FileZilla. Most web creators use these because they are cross-platform. They can be used on Mac, Windows, etc., and they are free. Now, the last thing that we will need is multi-site enabling code. The definitions of a site or multi-site are part of WordPress, but it's nothing that we can't achieve without a simple process of copy-pasting the code that we need. Now, to prove our point, let's get started with step number 1, backup and prep our WordPress website. Most hosting services allow you to back up your site data manually. It's a much quicker process and it's free, which is important to many of us. But the main thing is that you have an up-to-date backup because it's always better saved than sorry. With the backup completed, we'll turn off or deactivate all of our plugins. And this is because active plugins could create problems when we redefine the site. Some plugins may not even work on multi-sites, but luckily Elementor is one of those plugins that works wonderfully on multi-sites, and we'll be showing you just how to reactivate it on our multi-site. With our website prepared, let's move on to step number 2, redefining our standard site as a multi-site. Using the FTP software, we'll log in to access our WordPress folders and files on our server. Some people prefer to edit these files on their computer, others prefer to edit them on the server. Whatever you're more comfortable with is absolutely fine. Now we'll go to the file manager and we'll be editing information in this file here, the wp-config.php file. But first, what we'll do is we'll create a backup by making a copy of this file. With that done, we'll select the wp-config file and click on Edit to access it. Then we'll scroll down till we find this line here. That's all. Stop editing. Happy blogging. And we'll just leave this here for a moment. If you're doing this together with us and you have the masterclass video playing in a separate tab, then you should go to the show notes below where you'll find this code snippet. And we'll copy this line or snippet of code and we'll paste it here immediately before the stop editing happy blogging line that we located earlier. We'll just make sure that we leave a space between these lines and we'll save our changes. Now we'll return to our WordPress dashboard. If, like me, you've kept it open, we'll refresh it and we'll scroll down our menu and we'll notice that in the Tools tab, we now have a Network Setup option. In the Network Setup, you'll notice that we can add multiple sites as either subdomains or as subdirectories. Now, subdomains allow us to break down our website or root domain into smaller sites, each with content that is related to but not the same as the content on the main site. Subdirectories work a bit like categories in that they allow us to establish a hierarchy of all the directories that branch out of the root domain. In practice, this affects the way that the domain name will appear for each subsite, and each has pros and cons regarding SEO. Now, if you're not certain which of these is right for you, then you can join me and many of my colleagues and simply choose to use the subdomains option and click on Install. Now, what happens next is that WordPress generates a code snippet that will enable our multi-site to exist as subdomains. Not only that, it gives us clear instructions on where to place it, and we'll copy this code here and return to our WordPress file manager, to the wp-config.php file, and to the same place that we were before, and we'll create a space above the happy blogging line and paste the code we just copied, making sure again that we keep a space above and below this new code, and save our changes. Now we'll go back to our WordPress dashboard and select the second code snippet that was prepared for us. We'll copy it, and as you can see in the instructions here, we'll need to go back to our file manager and paste this code into a file labeled .htaccess. This is usually a hidden file, so if you can't see it among your WordPress files, go to the settings and select the Show Hidden Files option. Then click Save. With the .htaccess file located and selected, we'll click on Edit to access it. We'll select everything inside this if module, or the code between these two bracketed lines, and we'll paste over this with the code that we copied from the WordPress dashboard. And of course, we'll save our changes. Returning to the WordPress dashboard, we'll refresh our browser tab. We may have to log in again for that to happen, but doing so, we'll notice that some important changes have been made to our dashboard. First of all, we have the network admin over here, and to the left of that, we have My Sites, where we'll find access to our main domain, as well as all of our subsites that will be listed here. We now also have a separate option in the Updates tab for updates across all the sites of the network, and below that another tab where we can manage, add and edit our subsites. Even if we go to our themes, when we activate a theme from now on, we have the network enabled option to activate this theme across all of the sites on our network. And of course, the same goes for plugins and add-ons. Now, as we explained earlier, not all add-ons and plugins work with multi-sites. But if you're not sure, consult the plugin specs on the creators page. Or better yet, ask colleagues and Elementor community members on Reddit or in the Facebook groups. When we install or reactivate Elementor, we now have this Network Activate option to activate it across all of the subsites on our network. So we'll do just that and move on to step number 3, setting up our subdomains. To do that, we'll go to the Settings tab, where we'll find new options for network settings and setup. This, of course, is the name of our site. Now, the rest of these options are pretty self-explanatory, so we won't waste your time by going over them here. I would, however, like to point out this box here, where we can enter words or values that we don't want to appear in subsite names to avoid confusion or conflictions. And we'll save our changes. And with our settings sorted, we'll go back up the menu to the Sites tab and select Add New. We'll just give our new site a simple URL name. Then we can be a bit more elaborate with the actual title of the site. We can add the site admin's email, but we'll just leave it as it is for now, and click Add Site. Now we can access our new site here in the My Sites tab on the top menu bar. And notice that we now have all the basic WordPress options to our subsite as we would any other site. Through the subsite dashboard, we can create, design, build, post content, everything the same way that we're used to on a standard WordPress website. For example, if we go to this subsite's dashboard, we can add a theme and certain plugins to be used only on this site, as opposed to having them activated across all the sites in the network like we saw earlier. We should also be clear that if you have anything that needs an activation license, because those licenses are regulated according to URLs, you will most likely have to acquire separate licenses for each subsite. However, as professional web creators, the chances are that you're on an Elementor Expert plan, so you'll have no shortage of licenses to use for your new subsites. I would like to add just one more cool thing. Once we start adding sites on our network, the dashboard allows us to bounce back and forth very easily. But I recommend keeping an eye on the URL so that you're always aware of which site you are on, especially when you're editing. This week, we took one small and simple step in learning how to move from standard WordPress websites to creating and managing multi-sites. And as you know, in doing so, this springboards us on a giant leap to a whole new level of web creating. Now, if you have any tips or advice that could help other users create, set up and manage their own multi-sites, please add them in the comments below. And if you have any criticisms, we are equally interested in your thoughts. And if you've enjoyed this masterclass and you found it helpful, inspiring, or insightful, make sure that you click on the subscribe button and tap that bell so that you don't miss out on our next masterclass. Because after all, our goal is to be the best at helping others excel at their craft. Thanks for watching. Cheers.